Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me on another video this week. I really appreciate you guys for dealing with my inconsistencies and posting videos and just sticking around in following me. I hope that by sharing some of the things that I've gone through, that it helps you so you don't have to deal with the same issues I have, or that you know how to deal with the issues. Because part of the reason I know how to deal with certain things in addition to therapy is because I follow others that are either specialists in trauma or they've experienced trauma themselves. So in me doing these videos, I'm doing what I'm gleaning from others, and others pass on what they've gone through and what's helped them, and that's what I'm doing, passing on what's I've been through and what has helped me. Doesn't mean it'll help you. Everybody heals differently. Everybody's trauma is different. Even with similar set of circumstances, how people handle things is way different. I've spoken about that before in past videos. Today, I want to talk about kind of a milestone for me. Tomorrow is my birthday. Yay! I'm going to be 57. I'm very proud of my age because not everybody has the privilege of making it to 57. So I'm very grateful that that God has allowed me to live at least this long. 57 is by no means old. It's not a spring chicken either, as my joints remind me some days. But I'm actually confident in my age, and I don't mind sharing my age because God got me this far, so why not be proud of that? Last year's birthday was my first birthday without my ex. I hadn't gone through the divorce yet. This time last year, I was actually waiting the 60-day waiting period for him to respond or not respond so we could file the default hearing. And of course, he never responded, so we had the default hearing on October 21st, and the divorce was granted. So this time last year, I was going through that limbo part where I was waiting. It was the first birthday without him, and it was a wonderful birthday. I spent time with my mother and my sister, which I had not been able to do in years before. They always remembered my birthday. I always got something for my birthday, but I was never able to celebrate with them. So that was awesome. And then I got to continue the celebration with my daughter and her boyfriend. I tasted sushi for the first time, cooked. I'm not brave enough to try raw sushi. I kind of like it. It wasn't bad. It's not something I would do every day. Some people love sushi and would eat it every day if they could. I'm not one of them. But it wasn't bad. I actually kind of liked some of it. We had a whole hodgepodge, and I found out that my daughter and my youngest son had put in for a big sushi tray. So that was pretty awesome. That was their birthday present to me. Was a dinner, and I got to try sushi. But also, for my birthday present to me, I forgave my ex. That by no means that I would ever trust him. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And trust me, I can't throw him. I could at best knock him down. And that's if I'm mad. But, and so it doesn't mean that I trust him. Doesn't mean that I would ever consider taking him back, because that road, that bridge, it's not only broken, it's annihilated. It no longer exists. And quite honestly, I don't see another bridge being built, because trust has been obliterated. I think I've talked about this in previous videos, where he could be on the up and up, behaving, doing everything right for 3 years straight without a break or anything, and I still wouldn't trust it. It would still always be in the back of my mind, what if this is all an act? Because he is a very good actor, as I've shared before in previous videos. He's, my opinion, he's Oscar-winning material. And even if he came up to me, like, for instance, if the protection order wasn't in place, and he came up to me and said, I failed you as a husband, and I failed the kids as a father, and I'm so sorry. I would accept the apology, and I thank him for it, but I wouldn't trust him again. Because, again, it would still be in the back of my mind, what if it's an all big act? And he's telling me what he knows I would want to hear. Because he's done that before. But what forgiveness does mean is that I've let it go. I no longer hold deep anger. Well, that's hard to say, because there are days when I still struggle with despising him, especially after the week I've had, which I'll go into that in a little bit. There are days when I despise the simple air he breathes, and days that I feel like he's robbing oxygen from those of us that could use that oxygen. But on the same token, let's say by a weird set of circumstances, he gets hit by a car, and I happen to be the car behind the car that hit him, and he's laid out flat on the street. First of all, I'm going to make sure somebody's going to call in 911, and then I'm going to render first aid, even if it means doing CPR on him, because ultimately, if I'm honest with myself, I don't wish him dead. Like I said, there are days I struggle with that, because especially after times that I have a really bad day, or like this past week, a really bad week. But ultimately, I don't wish him dead. Because if I still held that anger to the point where I wished him dead, that means that he'd have power over me. He still had that power to control that anger. And his days of having power over me are long gone. So that's why I forgave him, even though he has not asked for my forgiveness, at least not that I am aware of. There's one person that is the go-between between the two of us, and that's my pastor. And my pastor has never relayed that message, though if he felt it was insincere, he wouldn't necessarily even pass it along to me. But, and quite honestly, if he was truly sorry, he would make sure I found out, either through my pastor or through his sister. He hasn't talked to his sister in roughly a year. Well, coming up on a year, not quite a year. So, you know, he hasn't asked for forgiveness even. But I've given it, not because I'm anything special. Y'all, I am a broken hot mess. And that's on my good days. It's just that I don't want him having power over me anymore. I'm going through enough trauma within therapy, in dealing with all of this trauma and working through it and being able to move on. I'm going through enough of that without adding on to things by holding on to anger. Because though there is appropriate anger, and there is very much righteous anger, and anybody who had been in my position or has been abused or traumatized by someone has every right to be angry at the person. Just like the individual that raped me 34 years ago now. I have long since forgiven him. Would I trust him? Not in your life, I would. I've even actually prayed to God that somebody reaches out to him in prison. He's not, if he's in prison, it's not because of what he did to me. That, he never faced a trial for that. They never even caught him. But knowing the circumstances and everything surrounding the rape, he was obviously a career criminal. So he's obviously, I have no doubt he's in jail for some reason. I've prayed that being in jail, that somebody reaches out to him. Doesn't mean I'm all that, because I'm not. It's only because God put that in me. Because on my own, I'd be wanting revenge. Understandably so. Anybody else, the world would say, oh, you have every right to seek revenge against the rapist and against your ex. Absolutely I do. But what good would it do? For one thing, it wouldn't change anything that happened. It may make me feel better for 2.5 seconds. But in the end, it doesn't change anything. And it only continues to enable them to have power over me. And there's only one individual that has power over me, and that's Christ Jesus. I'm not going to allow anybody else to have power over me. And that's why I've let go of it. But this year, I mean, I've been through a lot this past year. Going through therapy, as I've stated before, healing is not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. 1, 2, 3, do this, boom, you're healed. No. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. There were some times, especially in the beginning, when I had a therapy session before work because of my work schedule at the time. I didn't go to work till 10 o'clock in the morning. So I would have to have an appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning. Y'all, I could barely function at work that whole day after some sessions. And then when my schedule changed and I was able to go on Fridays after work, my therapist and I had set it up that way because that was a time when we were going to start really going over some really tough stuff. And I was going to need the whole weekend to recuperate. Y'all, when my therapist told me that I was going through this stuff, I was going to need the whole weekend to recuperate, he wasn't kidding. Oh my goodness. I would come out of that session after dealing with the trauma, and I would feel like a zombie. Like I was in a big brain fog. And the only reason why I was able to even drive, because it was muscle memory. And I would take that time and I would drive around. I wouldn't necessarily go straight home. I'd go driving to one of my favorite spots to clear my head. But I would only stay in sorry y'all, I had my phone on silent. I had a call. I wanted to make sure it wasn't anybody I wanted to talk to. I would stay around town because I know this town, and so if I happen to get in an area that I don't normally go to, find myself there, I was able to navigate myself back pretty quick. Because I would be so brain fried that I could barely think. And so I've gone through really tough time of healing this past year, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And just when I thought that, okay, I can start scaling back my appointments, because I've pretty much seen my therapist once a week for the past year. And then with planning of the outreach, my trip to Colorado, for like 4 weeks, I was busy, not being able to think of anything other than planning for the trip, packing, making sure I had everything, then coming back and doing the last minute things for the outreach, working on that, picking up donations, all of that, and then the outreach itself. So, and then my therapist went out of town and had a meeting, so I hadn't met with him in like 3 weeks. So I'm thinking, I've been doing great. Maybe I can start scaling back to just twice a month. Well, scaling down to twice a month and start phasing out. Yeah, I should know better than to think that, because every time I do, then something like this past week happens. This week, well, not the whole week. Well, yeah. Um, from not this past Wednesday, but Wednesday before, all the way through this Thursday, this past Thursday, day before yesterday. Oh my goodness, it was like demonic forces were all over the place. I know that sounds crazy, and I'm only half being facetious about it. Um, it was one trigger after another. I think I talked about last week's video about how a man's voice over the phone from the dental office triggered me. And I still don't know where that came from. And I talked to my therapist about it on Monday because we had missed last Friday. So we met this past Monday as well as yesterday. And I even talked to him about it because I don't know where it came from. Because the man had somewhat of a sultry voice, but he wasn't trying to be sultry. It was just his voice and his mannerism. He was really nice, really professional. I had no issues with him at all. And yet it triggered me. Don't know why. Whether it was because it bringing up a memory that I have suppressed that's trying to come up, which I've had that happen, or if it's due to a memory I've already worked through and just forgot that part of it. I don't know. Still don't know. Can't figure it out. But it triggered me. And then throughout the weekend, off and on, I had mild triggers. Nothing too major. And then Monday, oh my goodness. Monday was a crap show, to put it mildly. I had 2 very troublesome dreams about my ex that, when I woke up, was very hard to shake. I literally had a battle with myself until about 15 minutes before clocking in, whether I even wanted to clock into work and not call out, because it was like, there's no way. Well, I ended up clocking in and telling myself that I don't have a whole lot of time off left. Go ahead, at least let's go for half the day. Okay. I couldn't shake these dreams. They just kept replaying in my mind over and over and over. And I didn't know what the heck was going on. Slightest little thing was getting me crying. I was at sensory overload. I couldn't even listen to my music. Usually when I get this way, I get on the music app on my phone and I put in my worship music, put one earbud in my free ear, and I have my headset on the other. Um, that way I can feel the music as well as hear it. It's more than just in the background. I couldn't even do that because I was on sensory overload. And then something happened that I'm not going to get into because it's a personal stuff, but, and then I was done. I'm like, it was right as I was during lunch, and I'm like, I'm done. Okay, I can't handle anymore. I am at overload. Called my boss, told my boss that I had a headache, which it wasn't, I kind of did, but I didn't want to have to go into explanation of what was truly going on because it would have taken too long. So, called my boss, told him I'm clocking out, I can't handle things anymore. Clocked out, got up, went to my bed, and literally pulled the covers over my head because I was at such sensory overload that I couldn't handle anything, not even the sunlight. And I just let myself cry. And I cried and I cried. And then I calmed down. And then I had to numb out. So I started playing stupid game that's on my phone. Stupid puzzle type game. And because that's what I do to cope, is I numb out doing things like playing that game, because all I gotta do is think about the game, popping this, popping that, you know, doing what I need to do. And but by the afternoon I was able to, by around 4 o'clock that afternoon, I got myself up out of bed, took a shower, got dressed, went to my therapy appointment, even washed clothes at the laundromat, came home and put all the clothes away. So I think I was just at overload and I needed that time. And I thought, okay, the rest of the week won't be so bad. Tuesday, I had another trigger. Wednesday, oh my gosh, y'all. Wednesday was, I don't know where it came from. I had a flashback. And with that flashback, it took me 8 minutes to get myself regulated. But in getting myself regulated, I was able to go back to work after 8 minutes. I was watching the time because I can't take too long of a break at work. And I was able to finish the day. So I was proud of myself for that. But the flashback literally came out of nowhere. And then Thursday was, I woke up in the morning, my stomach was in knots. I take a couple of kids, friends' kids, to daycare a couple of times a week in the morning before I go to work. And that was one of my morning, and I couldn't. My stomach was in such knots. I was having issues. I'll be kind and not explain detail. And there was no way I could leave the house. So I had to call them and text them and let them know, hey, I'm not making it today. I'm so sorry. But then Friday was much better. Didn't have any issues. Got through the day without any problems. Um, in fact, it was even low call volume at work. My stats for Friday were actually way better than they have been. So Friday was even better. But I started realizing that, I was thinking, okay, how is this better than this past week? Thursday, I wrote things down. I hadn't gone into my journal and written things down in quite a while. So I wrote things down, and that helped me process them and get them out the door. And that's what I want to encourage today is journal. Even if you only write a few lines, do it. I don't even write in my journal every day. Sometimes I go a week or two without feeling the need to write in it. But when I do, it's like at least a page and a half, 2 pages. But with me in journaling and writing things through, I'm able to, in putting it to paper, I'm able to think it through and look at it from kind of like a distance, like a detached sense. And so it helps me think things through better and either figure out where it came from or at least at best figure out how to deal with it. But in mentioning this week and what I went through, I wanted to talk about that's going to happen. My therapist even said that you're going to go 3, 4, 5 weeks without anything happening, and then bam, you feel like you've taken 4 steps back. And that's how I felt this past week and a half, however long it's been, because I'm like, I did so good. 3.5 glorious weeks without any flashbacks, anything going on, and then bam. Well, like I talked in my last video, part of it was because I had slowed down, I wasn't busy, so then my body said, okay, it's safe now, she can start processing things again. And it was things that I had not, that were put on the back burner. I didn't even mean to, it's just that I was so busy with everything else that I didn't have time to think about this stuff that caused this past week. And so now that I had slowed down, all of this was coming up, and I got kind of tempted to think, oh well, if this is what happens, if when I get busy I don't have time to think about things, maybe I should stay busy. And that's tempting. And I could totally see why there's people that are going through trauma that stay super busy, because they get so busy they don't have time to think about things that they really should think about, but they don't because it's too scary. And that's what happened. So now I know to be more mindful. If I start getting busy and I start having good weeks, I know I'm going to have to give myself a break in between time, just so things aren't suppressed, because not dealing with things for 3 weeks and then having them pile up on me, oh my goodness, that was definitely not fun. But things like that are going to happen. And it doesn't mean that you're digressing. It's just a different part of healing. I mean, in a way, it's a victory that I went 3.5 weeks without any kind of significant flashback or anything like that. So I'll take that victory, even though it's part because I was super busy. It's still a victory, because there was a time that my brain would not have been able to do multiple things at once. Like get lesson plans done for the entire month of July, because I'm going to be planning the trip, on the trip, and then the following week was the outreach, so I knew I wouldn't have had time to do it like I had normally done it. So I got by the end of the first week of July, I had the rest of the month done through August 1st for lesson plans. And then I was planning my trip, doing a little shopping for the trip, picking up donations for the outreach, consulting on that, saying, okay, for this, what do we do this, and all of that entails. And there was a time that I could not have done all of that because my brain would not have let me. I had major trauma brain, to where I would not have been able to think things through bit by bit. Even now, I'm amazed that in my new position at church, director of children's ministries, I'm handling a lot of things. And there was a time that I could not have handled a lot of things. And yet I am. I'm able to organize them and do what I need to do. And then even today has been a good day so far. I woke up around 7:30, 8 o'clock, because my body can't seem to sleep past that. And I just laid in bed and went on my phone, did a few things on my phone, and then finally about 10:30 or so, I got up out of bed, made myself a cup of coffee, cleaned the kitchen, emptied the dishwasher, loaded it back up again, cleaned the counters, swept and mopped the kitchen. So and then even picked up in my living room a little bit. So even now it's a good day. And it's because I wrote my feelings Thursday night, and then last night I kind of had not a flashback, but a realization of some things that I'm going to talk about in a second. This turning out to be a pretty long video, y'all, so thank you for bearing with me. And I wrote down my feelings with that realization. And I think that's why I'm doing good this morning. And so I can't emphasize this enough, to write your feelings down. Even if you don't prefer to write, you prefer to be on a computer, write it down on a computer. Take your laptop or your desktop and keep a file just for a journal. You could always put it on a thumb drive and change it from computer to computer. It doesn't matter. Just some way of keeping track of your thoughts, because it does so well to be writing it through or typing it through because you're thinking about it while you're doing it, and so you can think things through and again see where something's coming from, or at least figure out how to deal with it. um Last night, a realization I came to, and this was really hard to deal with. I've somewhat come to the realization before, but I think last night it really hit me because I was watching. I'm subscribed to PureFlix right now, and I was watching a sappy movie on PureFlix, and it kind of triggered this realization that I didn't protect my kids like I should have. And I know even my therapist would say that, yes, I was making decisions with how well I was equipped or ill equipped at the time. And that is all true. But that still doesn't take away the responsibility. I was so scared of facing my ex that I allowed things that the person I am now would never do. I am not the same person that I was back then. I'm 180-degree different. And I look back and it's like, how could I have allowed it? I won't go into detail because it's my kids' stories to tell. But I allowed a lot of things that I really wish I wouldn't have. I did not protect them like I should have because I too felt incapacitated because I cared. I was more scared of him, my ex. And that hurts. And I'm not trying to paint myself as a victim where that's concerned, because I allowed it. Yes, I was abused myself, greatly abused and traumatized. But I didn't put my kids first. And I blame myself, and it hurt dealing with it. But in writing through my feelings and being brutally honest with myself, it helped me forgive myself. And I have one of my kids that really seems to be the most traumatized or the most sensitive to the trauma, is dealing with some stuff right now that I didn't do back when they were younger. And I guess maybe that's what also triggered the memory. And it made me realize that I wasn't as good of a parent as I wanted to be, or that I should have been. And again, I was traumatized too. I was making decisions with how ill-equipped I was. But I still need to own up to that and ask for forgiveness. I'm not going to harp on it because it's in the past and it's no longer relevant. But what I allowed did cause damage. And I need to at least take responsibility for it. And so when you realize that you allowed things that you would not even consider allowing today, take responsibility for it, but don't harp on it. Just, okay, that's what I did. It was horrible. I should have never allowed it. I should have never done it. Whatever the case may be. Ask for forgiveness from those that you need to ask forgiveness from. And then move on. And know that the person that was then no longer exists, because that person, that penny does not even exist. Dude, in Colorado, I stood up to strangers. Well, kind of sort of strangers. I snapped back at someone. It was a brother and sister. And I didn't know they were playing around. And the brother was hitting on the sister. And, I snapped back big time. I'm like, no, you will not do that. I have an issue with that. And then she said, oh, no, we're just playing. We play like that. And then I realized they were, and I backed down and I apologized. But, dude, that's something I would have never done back then. I would have cowered in my corner or just kind of slipped out of the way. So I know that I am not that person so long ago. I have grown. I'm not going to say I'm better, but I am grown. I have grown. So, well, this video is almost 50 minutes long. So I will stop here. Closing thoughts, just remember that you're not the person you were. You're growing and changing and evolving. Always journal, because journaling helps tremendously. And when you have a bad day or a bad week, don't think you're regressing. Think of it as just part of the healing process. Dealing with things that you haven't dealt with and that you need to deal with. So have a wonderful day and a great week. Next week I'll tell y'all how my birthday was. I know it'll be good. And stay blessed. And as always, share these videos, because I want to help even one person, prevent them from going through what I went through. Have a good week. Bye.